and I'm not even going to act like I've got this one down, but it's the best advice I can give, is try to enjoy the hard times. There's a lot of stories in the middle of what we talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, I was living in a 900 square foot apartment with 10 people. I wanted to cut costs. I didn't want to spend money on rent. I wanted to spend it on my business. There's a lot of those stories.
Yeah.
But they're memories. They're part of the journey. It's part of the fun. When I look back, what was not fun then, I look back like, you know what? It wasn't really that bad.
Welcome to the Daron Earlewine Podcast, where we awaken you to become who you were born to be. Here's your host, Daron Earlewine.
Welcome back to the Daron Earlewine Podcast. Crowds going wild. We're amped today. Amped to be stoked. That's a different level. You know what I mean? When you're stoked, you're stoked. But when you're amped to be stoked, it is next level. It's usually caffeinated. It's good. Hey, I'm excited about today's episode because today's episode is episode 43. And contrary to popular opinion, I am actually 43. So this is my birthday episode. Happy birthday to me. I wish I had a button, a sound effect button of the happy birthday song, because right now would be when we'd play it. It's not my birthday, but I am 43. This is episode 43. And we're sitting down with Steve Roseman. Steve is a serial entrepreneur and in a really unique, passionate, compassionate way. Serial entrepreneur, knew he wanted to be an entrepreneur when he was in 7th grade. We're going to talk about that and just the journey that took him there. And today's episode is brought to you by the letter P. By the letter P. And I don't know if you do you remember Sesame Street? You know, when every episode was brought to you by a different letter and number, and I think maybe a color as well. This has no letter or color associated with it, but it is brought to you by the letter P. We're going to talk about problems. We're going to talk about passion, permission, in partnership. If you're taking notes, make sure you can write uppercase P. Anyway, hey guys, so excited to be back with you. This past week, I'm just coming back from an absolutely fulfilling, amazing, favorite week probably of my year, if not second favorite, because vacation might be my favorite. But just got back from speaking at Never the Same NTS camps. It was actually a camp this year up at Indiana Wesleyan University in Marion, Indiana, just up the street from here in Indianapolis, where we record the podcast. And got a chance to spend a week with 1,100 high school, junior high students. And summer camp is one of my favorite things. It changed my life. It was at camp that I've experienced my call to ministry. It's at camp that I experienced some of the first opportunities to use my gifts and abilities to drum, to be able to lead and to help other people. And so for my whole life, summer camp was just such a pinnacle of my year. And so to still have the opportunity to go back and to make a difference and make an impact on the lives of teens, just something that I love doing. And I'm just so full of passion and excitement this week, just from the kind of the hangover of all the greatness of last week. And there's just, I share that with you because I want you to know what's going on in my life. I want to know what's going on in your life. You can email me, you can text me. We've talked about that here on the podcast. But I also want to just share the unbelievable passion and fulfillment that comes from becoming who you were born to be. We talk about it every episode. And I'm just so humbled and just overwhelmed by the opportunity to know that you're partnered up with something that God's doing, and you're doing exactly what you were put on earth to do. And as a ministry, we're praying for God to open up more opportunities for me to spend time with more high school students and college students. I want to give more time to that next generation and awakening them to become who they're born to be. And if you have a high school group, maybe you're a youth pastor, a college pastor, you have a campus ministry, or you're going to college, you're going to high school, reach out to me. I would love to come and spend some time with your group, whether it's a fraternity, a sorority, maybe a company, a team, and work with you to help people discover who God's created them to be, so they don't waste their life. And this past week was just such a blast. Man, oh man, such good times. please, please, please do everything that God is asking you to do to become who you're born to be. Because when you get those moments, when you know you're right in the dead center of God's call in your life, there's nothing like it. So good. And if you don't know how to discover your unique design, you need to take Spiritual DNA. And here's what I'm saying. SpiritualDNA.me is the website. You can go right now and go take Spiritual DNA. If you're listening to the podcast real time, if this isn't like 2 years, what I'm getting ready to say right now makes no difference. Just go to the website and get it. But it is June of the year 2021 right now. And we are just about a month away from releasing Spiritual DNA 2.0. The videos are done. We're editing them. We're putting together the new participants guide. And I cannot wait for you to check out Spiritual DNA 2.0 at spiritualdna.me. We've included the Enneagram this time around in Spiritual DNA. You go through the fivefold ministry function to understand, who you are in God's kingdom. You go through Strength Finders, and you go through Passion and Pain. The new course, new teaching, new videos. I can't wait for you to check it out. It's going to be released here in the next month or so if we get everything done. And I can't wait for you to check it out. If you're listening to this past June 2021, just go to the website right now, Spiritual DNA 2.0, and check it out. Hey, listen, today's podcast is brought to you by the letter P, because we're going to talk about problems, passion, permission, and partnership. And as I sat down with Steve Roseman, he takes us back to his childhood. We take a lot of people here on the podcast back to that moment, right? And he realizes that as he watched his grandfather be an entrepreneur, watched his grandpa help other people, he realized at a very early age that he wanted to spend his life helping people. He saw the joy that his grandfather's life brought other people. He saw the joy that it brought his family and his grandpa, and he knew that there was something in him that's what he wanted to spend his life doing. And with Steve, he's helped actually fix a few problems in life, but his passion wasn't necessarily for a specific problem, but was for helping people. And so here's the question, as the appetizer to get you into this episode, is I want to ask you this. What problem in the world is your life helping solve? Or what problem in the world are you working to help redeem? Like, other than your own personal problems in your life, does the output or the effect of your life have any connection to solving problems in the world? Solving problems on your street, solving problems in your family, solving problems maybe in your town. Because here's what I realize is if you're listening to the podcast and you believe that God is for you, not against you, you believe that God is near you, not far from you, and you are following Jesus into the mission that he created you for, then as Christians, our life, right, is to be an actual representative of Jesus, meaning that our life, the result of our life should be redemption, reconciliation, right? That our life should be working to redeem situations in the world and actually reconcile relationships, whether it be vertical ones, people to God, or people to each other. And so oftentimes, and we talked about this, I think maybe back in like November, December of last year, we had a series of interviews. One was with Ben Cooley, one was with JT, Jermaine Thomas, and there was one other one. You have to go back and look at it. But we had like 3 or 4 episodes in a row where we were talking about people that just got a heart to solve big problems in the world and to begin asking God big questions like, God, what kind of problems could I help you solve? Because the reality is that's what's happening. God's kingdom, right? We pray for it, right? That God's kingdom would come and his will would be done on earth as it is in heaven. But God doesn't just magically think things happen. What happens is God is looking for people who have a heart to help people with problems, right? That then would actually ask God to give them a passion for those problems, that they would then actually give God permission to invite them into it and use their best in that process, and then they would partner with God. I told you it was going to be sponsored by the letter P, right? That's the process. There's another P. I've got P words all day long, right? That's the process. And if you're at a place right now where the only problems you're focusing on, the only problems that are completely overwhelming your life are your own problems, you may be caught in a kind of centrifugal force of, it's almost selfishness. You say, Daron, no, I've got some major problems going on in my life. I bet you might. But here's what I also know. is I don't think you find your way out of finding solutions to the problems in your life if your whole focus of your life is just your own problems. So often, right, the mechanism of maturity and growth that you need to actually solve some of the problems that you may be in is not found in a pathway of selfishness and self-focus. It's actually found in a pathway of selflessness and servanthood. And so as you hear Steve's story, I want you just to begin maybe figuring out is God, do I have a passion to actually help redeem or solve a problem in the world? And if you don't have a passion to actually join and partner up with God to solve a problem in the world, your life and your dreams might just be too small. What I love about Steve is he's not a local pastor, right? He's a businessman. And just like he said, from 7th grade, he knew he wanted to start a company. As he goes through that process, he realizes that, money wasn't actually the driving force for him. It's great to make money. He's made money. He's invested hundreds of thousands of dollars back in his company to help people because he says, and he'll say it in this interview here, he came to the place where he realized the greatest passion of his life was helping the people who are helping people. It's beautiful. Like Steve was like, I want to make an impact on like 1 million people. But you realize I probably can't make an impact on 1 million people. But if I help the people who are helping people, the multiplication tables of that could actually get to the place where maybe I could help 1 million people by helping the people that are helping the people. And he has a passion for this. And what you're going to hear in this interview is Steve has a passion to solve problems. He's very strategic. God has created him to be, right? When we understand who God has created him to be, he is a pioneer apostle through and through, constantly starting new companies and new nonprofits to help people that are helping people. He's discovered who he's created to be, and he's solving a problem. And what he's done in this is he's actually allowed God to give him a passion to solve a problem, and he's given God permission to guide and direct his life using his best gifts and abilities. And the cool part is this, is then he begins to partner with God. And when that happens, God begins to give you ideas to solve those problems in a passionate way in your partnership with him. All ideas, all good things come from God, and he's looking for people that he can trust with ideas to solve problems in this world, and he's inviting you into that process. You're going to enjoy this conversation with Steve Roseman, the founder, CEO of Donaide, an amazing online platform that helps people be able to donate money to their favorite nonprofits, know what's going on. Brainchild of Steve, he's going to tell you about it. Donaide. He's got a couple other companies that he runs, but this is a guy who has a passion for God. He's given permission to God, and he's in partnership with God to help the people who are helping people. Love it. You're going to enjoy this interview. And if you've been enjoying the podcast, I want to invite you from moving from just being a listener to being an investor. The Daron Earlewine Podcast is a ministry of Blackbird Mission, nonprofit that I started over 10 years ago. And we're trying to invite people this summer to join us financially to help close up some of the financial gaps we have to keep this ministry going at full steam. And if this podcast has made a difference in your life, we'd love for you to help us expand the reach of it to make a difference in the lives of thousands of more people. You can just go to blackbirdmission.com/give. And the drop-down menu there's a menu that says the Daron Earlewine Podcast. And we'd like to ask you to consider joining us at a $40 easy give, $40 a month easy give plan to help us expand the ministry, expand the reach of the podcast. And if you're not a place where that can be a reality for you financially, no problem. We get it. But if we've made an impact in your life and you'd like to help us do that for others, love for you to join us as a podcast partner. We will send you a free Daron Earlewine coffee mug that says created on purpose and for a purpose. And we'll stay connected with you month to month and give you a look behind the scenes what's going on with the Daron Earlewine Podcast. Love for you to consider that. Let's get to the interview right now with Steve Roseman, right here on the Daron Earlewine Podcast. Hey, welcome back to the Daron Earlewine Podcast, sitting down with Steve Roseman. And Steve, a lot of times I say my good friend. This time I get to say my new friend. Yeah. Because we just met each other recently. Absolutely. And Steve, you are the founder and president of Donaide, which is a great nonprofit that's doing really, really cool stuff. We're going to unpack it today. Yep. And I'm just stoked to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So I got to be a guest on your podcast last week. And I haven't been interviewed on a podcast for a while. Yep. And I realized super intense. Well, it was super intense. You yelled at me all the time, but no, it was like I didn't realize. I host a podcast. Yeah. I do this all the time, every single week. But I was genuinely kind of nervous being on the other side.
Really?
Of it. Yeah. It was, so I have greater compassion now for any of our guests, because I'm like, it's kind of nerve wracking. Even when you're talking about yourself, it's kind of like, I don't exactly know what they're going to ask, how this is going to go.
No, I'm with you. I'm not the biggest fan of talking about myself, so I try to divert as much as I can and get people sidetracked and talking about them. So,
well, you're getting ready to do a bunch of it, so settle in.
All right.
So you are the founder and president of Donaide. Yep. Give us a little bit more of about who you are, personal life, kind of stuff. Fill in some blanks for us.
Yeah. So Donaide. So there's two aspects of Donaide. So there's Donaide that is not a nonprofit; it's a for-profit entity, and then we have our Donaide Foundation, which is the nonprofit.
Okay.
But Donaide services the nonprofit world. That's why most people think we are a nonprofit. But no, I even getting into how that kind of came to formulate was I started my own nonprofit back in, I want to say 2011 or 12.
Okay.
It was in memory of my grandfather who had MS. So naturally, I started a nonprofit to help individuals who had MS. And it was so my dynamic with my grandfather was different. He had MS, he couldn't walk. And so our dynamic was I would just sit on the couch and talk to him. And I only bring that up because, like anything in life, you learn things, but you don't know you learned them or didn't understand until like 20 years later, where you wish, hey, I wish I would have known that back then. Yeah. So I learned a lot from him, but I didn't know what I learned from him until he had unfortunately passed. So as I was going through that first nonprofit, I say first because now I'm on my second one. As I was dissolving it, now I only dissolved it because I also have We Do Charity Auctions, which is a mobile bidding company that we service, nationally. Very blessed there. A lot of fun, a lot of big fancy galas and parties, stuff like that. Yeah. But what I identified as I was wrapping up with and dissolving that was I didn't actually have a passion for MS. I did it because of my grandfather, but what I did have is a passion for helping people. And that's when the light bulb switched for me, because I started to notice that I wasn't as excited to help people with MS like I at the beginning. And then once I realized it's not about the MS, it's about just helping anybody. Yeah. Then a light bulb I wouldn't say a light bulb switch, just my energy came back once I really identified that, wait a minute, yes, I was helping people, but it was so singular and I was getting a little, too hyper-focused on that. And it also clicked because I watched my grandfather who had MS, couldn't walk, had health issues because of it. People would come in his house and he'd hand them envelopes full of cash. You need to go feed your family. You need this. So he's sitting there donating and supporting all these people when most people would say he's the one that needed help. Yeah. But that's not who he was. Yeah. And so I really learned a lot of that from just watching and being in that environment. And so it's part of who we were as a family. And if you would have told me when I graduated college that I was going to be servicing nonprofits for a living, I'd be like, no, I'm a sales guy. I want to make all this money. I was very money driven. Yeah. Like anybody who goes to school for sales and marketing. Sure. Well, generally speaking. And once I identified money wasn't my driving force, once again, light bulb went off. It's like, wait a minute, how about I focus on what I love to do? Yeah. And money will eventually come.
Well, let's go back there, Steve, because I want to connect. Obviously, your grandfather had an influence on your life even before, his closing years. Yeah. And so I'm guessing there are some seeds that were planted in your life, in your childhood, that now have come to fruition of being focused on doing good and helping other people do it. Take us back to the beginning. I mean, was nonprofit serving kind of a thing that was a part of the Roseman family growing up?
Well, I think it was because we're engaged in our church. Okay. Right? So I grew up in the Catholic school system. Okay. CYO sports and all that kind of stuff. Even, my son goes to public school, but I want him to be in the CYO sports area. And for me, it was always about that community. And it's funny, you're talking about the seeds that have been sown. Some of it was watching my grandfather and my mom. The only way I can explain it was the environment I was in. And like other people, I had some not so awesome things in my life. But I got bullied a lot. Thankfully, I was an athlete. That was my thing. So I say I got bullied a lot. I got bullied more from my own friends than anybody, but they didn't realize that's what they were doing. But I was dyslexic. I couldn't, I had a lot of challenges in school. I always tell people, I was on I rather cheat than repeat program. Schools for some people, it's just not for me. And so I only bring that up because I have my own challenges, but it was always about, I always wanted to help people, even my own classmates, when they were, whether they were getting bullied or whatever.
Yeah.
It was just something about it. Like, I didn't want people to be sad. I didn't want, anybody to be hurting. And to sum it up, what I was blessed to have when my grandfather passed, I believe there were 17 priests behind his casket.
Wow.
So that was my influence. So that's what I was blessed to have. That's why I believe I'm here today. Donaide is here because of that. I truly believe, and right now, if you went to our website, you'd see a scripture at the bottom of the website. I don't preach my faith a lot, but anybody who knows me knows it's very much a part of who I am, why I've been able to do certain things. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah,
but,
it does. It does.
Easiest way to summarize.
And what was, fill in the gaps maybe from, college, into, into starting companies and the entrepreneurship. Was that in you early? Kind of connect some dots there for us.
7th grade. I knew in 7th grade that I wanted to own my own business.
How's that?
Shadow of a doubt. Like, it just, I don't know. So my grandfather started a chain of liquor stores. My mom was a special ed teacher.
Okay.
Had to get into the stores just to be able to support us as a family. And so at a young age, once again, my grandfather running businesses, I looked at him, very successful businessman, 7 kids, it was just a crazy fun environment.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to follow that path. I didn't understand at 7th grade really what that meant.
Yeah.
But I got my first job in 7th grade. That's when I identified that I think being a workaholic is okay and a strength of mine. But I did every summer when people are talking about going off doing different things. I was like, I can work now. I don't have to go to school. I can work.
I'll make some money.
I know. And so my goal at the time, because I worked at the same place from 7th grade, so I was 23 when I graduated college.
Get out of here.
And because my goal was to buy that company from him.
Where did you work?
Downtown on the canal, the paddle boats.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And it was his company. I did it every summer.
It was your grandpa's company?
No, friends of mine, a friend's dad.
Okay. From 7th grade to you were 23.
Yep. And basically what happened, that was my plan, because I only went to college for the experience and for my mom.
Okay.
I knew formal education was not going to help. I was going to start my own business.
Yeah.
And so I didn't need that. It was fun, don't get me wrong. Had a good time. But the year that I was graduating,
okay,
the city didn't renew his lease because they identified how much money and revenue he was making.
Get out of here.
And so that right there killed it. So
you're chasing a dream. I'm 7th grade. I know I'm going to start a business.
Yep.
I get connected with a friend's family that owns a small business.
Yep.
I pour in, what's the math there? 7, 14, it's 22. Did I just do math there real time? I'm just going to say plus 20, right?
Yeah,
no, it's not 7 years old, 7th grade.
7th grade. So
Okay,
you're
7th
probably
grade,
talking, 12, 14 years.
12. So you give over a decade. Say I tried to do math and I got grades and years messed up. Stick with me, folks.
We don't have our phones on.
I talk well. That's about it. So you give over a decade. And then at the point where it's like potential, let's negotiate, hand over the baton. I'm the heir apparent here. I've given my time. Nope, business is gone.
Yep. That fast. So then I started to look at what do I like, right? Because I wasn't prepared to interview. I didn't have any of that planned.
Take us through the motion there. Was it disappointing? Was it crushing? Did you connect it at all to like faith? Like, God, you screwed me over. What was the stir there?
It just sucked.
Okay.
It really was that.
Yeah.
I had no emotional attachment.
Yeah.
It was a huge bummer.
Sure.
So I was like, I know this. It's not hard.
Yeah.
I knew though that because it was a seasonal business, I was going to do something else. I was just going to be during that season.
Okay.
I was going to probably find somebody like myself to run it for me.
Mm-hmm.
So disappointing,
sure,
but not life altering.
Okay.
Where the life altering part came in is instead of buying a business where revenue was already there, I had to now figure out, so what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So I actually got into the direct marketing industry, which for those listeners, MLM, your Mary Kay's or stuff like that, if you're not familiar with the industry, which was a huge blessing from some of the things I learned in terms of being very frugal with my money and learning how to build something with nothing. And I loved the industry I was in. So it was nutrition.
Okay.
Still this day, love the nutrition industry. Problem is I got into it in the wrong decade. You know what I was talking about? Taking a multivitamin. People are like, well, why would I do that?
Yeah.
And now I don't know a single person that doesn't,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
So once again, bad timing is what it is. I was in that industry a little too long, about 6 years, a little different. So I traveled around the country. I basically went in office needed, because it wasn't home based for me. An office needed a little boost. I'd go in, boost, leave some people there, go on to the next. Met some amazing people, still some great friends of mine. When I left that industry, because some things happened business partner wise, and I'd maxed out in education I was going to get. I wasn't going to grow anymore. That is when I started my nonprofit, got into the mobile bidding industry, which was great for me as a business entrepreneur, because the mobile bidding industry just launched.
Yeah.
Because smartphones, that was like I still remember to this day, I still had my BlackBerry, you know?
Yeah.
So it was that switch that,
I can remember one of the first like galas I went to where they had, they may have use your guys' service. And I remember being like, so wait a second, we just can bid right here. I mean, it was a game changer.
Oh yeah. Well, and even then there was one company here locally that they were passing out iPods.
Right.
And I noticed the downside to that. Like I'm watching my mom and she doesn't know how to use an iPod. So half of the older people are just setting them on the table, or they're getting lost in screens.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm fascinated. I'm like doing all this, but I was young at the time. But I got introduced to a couple guys that brought me in as a partner. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. We had different visions. I created WeDo because at that time, the only nonprofits who could afford that kind of tech were larger ones.
Yeah.
I didn't want that to be the case because I wanted to help everybody. So I didn't care about the profit margin. As long as I can stay in business, I want to service everybody.
Sure.
So I was very blessed. The aha moment in that one, I was at the Westin, and I forget the name of the nonprofit, but they were focusing on sex trafficking. And I remember listening to this story. It was a little girl, I think she was 16 at the time, maybe 14, that her mom had sold her into that world to feed her brothers.
Wow.
And I was working that event, and I stopped and I got my wallet out and donated. That's when I understood how technology can really affect the nonprofit world if they use it properly. And so over the years of just doing events and working with nonprofits and that, not only did I want to help figure out how to make my own nonprofit sustainable financially, but I wanted to help other nonprofits do that too. I'm watching them chasing money all the time. And most of them, they got into it to help people, not raise money.
Right.
Which is super hard. That was one thing that when I got out of the nonprofit world, huge ego check. I was like, I got all this training. I have all this success in business. This is going to be cake.
Yeah.
Problem that I didn't realize is I've always had a product.
Yeah.
You're selling a vision.
Yeah.
And so that was my first ego check there. But that's where Donaide started to formulate is because even for myself, I was chasing money.
Yeah.
Events, sponsors, all this kind of stuff. And then it's like whatever's left over, I can serve the mission, which I wasn't serving the mission the way I wanted because I didn't make enough money. And so that's what I wanted to fix. The day I started building Donaide was I was sitting in church, compelled to tithe in that moment. Not like my traditional tithe. Like in the moment,
Boom.
I want to give my tithe.
Yeah.
And I didn't. It was nothing more than I'm listening to Daron, loving what he's saying, emotionally engaged. I'm charged, hyper energy. I'm like, well, I don't carry cash. I don't carry checks. I'm not going to stop listening to him to find some credit card thing. And then I'll miss the rest of his message.
Yeah.
But yet I was on my phone taking notes. Like, this is stupid. Like, this is silly. Come on. I should be able to click a few buttons, tithe, miss 15 seconds of what he's saying.
Yeah.
I went home and I started thinking about that. And then I started to connect it to a lot of the stuff that I see in the nonprofit world. You're out with friends, maybe having dinner, and somebody mentions something. You're like, I'd love to give to that. And like when I get home, I'll do it. Then
You forget.
you know, the emotions aren't there. Maybe they have a name that you can't remember how to figure out how to spell it, you know, all those things. So then I started thinking, okay, what about walks? You're in the middle of a field. If you're a female or someone, you don't have our stuff, but you always have your phone on you.
Yeah.
And so that's when I set out, how can I fix this one situation? And then I started to identify, how can I help nonprofits become more financially sustainable so that they can focus on their mission? And to me, I'm not even a tech guy. Like I joke around, but I'm dead serious. The only time I am the most tech savvy person in the room is when I'm at my mom and dad's house. Like that's the only time I win in the game of tech. And people laugh at me all the time. I'll reach out to a lot of my employees and be like, hey, can you do this? And you can tell in their pause. Yeah. They're like, is this dude for real? Like, come on. And I care. And I'm open to say, people ask me all the time and they're surprised that I'm open about it because some people hide money talk.
Sure.
I don't know why, but I've invested over $500,000 my own money.
Yeah.
Building Donaide. And I only say that because that is how much I care about helping the nonprofit service their missions, right? Yeah. If I want to go out and help, I don't know, 1 million people. Yeah. I can't do that by myself. It doesn't make any, so I identify that, well, what if I can help the people who are helping people?
There you go.
Technology is not going away. Mm-hmm. It's only advancing. Yeah. For those who, if you're listening, maybe you're a little older and you don't want to accept that. I mean, that's just the reality. Yeah. Because the younger, probably, I think my 6-year-old knows how to use an iPad better than I do. Yeah. So you really think that they're going to go backwards? Right. It's like, no. So,
but what I love about that, Steve, is maybe somebody's watching, somebody's listening, and it's like they have a passion, but they don't necessarily know that they have the skill set that matches that. Like for you, your passion was doing good and empowering, and to exponentially grow the ability to do good. Yep. But it's like, but you didn't enter through the door of like, well, and I know how to program computers and we could do like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But the passion was something that allowed you to get through a door to use a tool that you didn't necessarily have to be great at doing, but the passion itself, drove the success of it.
Yeah. Like if you look through the nonprofit world, and I'm not putting down tech companies in my industry, just there's so many that you can tell were just built by tech people that didn't actually know about the industry. Mm-hmm. They just saw a market to go after. Sure. That was a thing that we got right out of the gate was the feedback. We're like, oh, we can tell that you've been in the nonprofit world.
You get it.
Like, yeah, I mean, this tech is it's simple. Literally anybody can use it.
If Steve can use it.
Yeah. I was the buffer. If I can't figure this out, go back to the, it's like, hey, but once again, and you make a good point. I knew the industry. I didn't know tech. There's a lot of things I've done wrong, way more wrong than right. Part of that money, a lot of it was just bad mistakes. But going back to why I think I'm, the purpose, if you will. Yeah. There are a couple of moments because we're almost 6 years in. Wow. Publicly only 1.5. We launched 3 months before COVID hit. I spent all that time building it, and then we had a great little pop, and then zero, literally zero. And as you can imagine, a lot of times throughout that process, I internalized. Is this me? Which a lot of it was, yes, I'm messing up because it's me. But why have I not given up yet? Should I give up? And every single time that I truly sit down and pray, and because I think meditation and prayer, it's different for me. Usually, basically, I try meditation, and then it only lasts for like 1 minute, and then it turns into prayer. But in those true moments, it's clear that, no, I'm supposed to. Yeah. There's so many things that could have gone worse that Donaide shouldn't be here. Times that I'm like, okay, this isn't working. Nobody really wants this. And then I'll talk to like 10 people in a row, and they're like, this is the greatest thing ever. Yeah. Like, really? Like, if you 10 people would have just said, hey, this isn't for us, I probably would have shut the door. every time I get in those lulls, things like that happen. And
Well,
I'm like,
I think I talk about it, in the spiritual DNA course that we teach about passion, like that we feel like, I think sometimes one of the hurdles is God good enough to really let me do something I'm passionate about? But what I always tell people is that, passion, the root word there in Latin, paseo, is suffering.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course God would let you do something that you're passionate about because you're willing to suffer for it.
Yeah.
Right. If you weren't passionate, you would have quit.
Yeah.
Like you would have quit at probably the second $100,000. Like, listen, this is enough suffering for me. See you later. Or COVID hits. It's like, hey, we're out of here. Yeah. But it's that the passion that sustains, and what's going to be beautiful, I think, Steve, to watch is that the passion that has sustained you through this season is on the backside of this, as the world's getting back to normal. The millions of dollars that you guys help raise, the thousands and thousands of lives that are changed through all of these nonprofits, it's going to be worth every minute of it.
Oh, 100%. Like, I don't doubt that at all.
So explain Donaide to some of these listeners. You guys keep talking about this. Explain it for a average Joe.
Yep. So it's nothing more than a directory to help people find nonprofit and nonprofit activities.
Okay.
It's solely solving the problem. Nonprofits being able to say who they are and what they need. Mm-hmm. And the other massive problem that I actually care more about is helping people find those things. I talk to people all the time. Yeah, I would definitely do more nonprofit or more charity stuff. I just can't find anything. Anything I can get behind. Yeah. Like, I've been in the industry for a long time, and still right now, if I went to my computer and tried to find a family-friendly volunteer opportunity that's not a food bank, it's almost impossible. And so, like, going back to our original conversation, is like, how am I supposed to start educating my kids, getting them involved if nonprofits aren't marketing, aren't getting it out there? And that's the reality is, I think there's a missing business strategy that nonprofits, they need to market just like another business. Now, I was in one of my own mastermind trainings that, when I say my own, something that I was learning and being a part of, their big thing is like, you can build the best product on the planet. If nobody knows, you have no business. If you have no audience, you have no business. And so that's what I wanted to solve. I wanted to make it easy. I wanted, like, it's the principles of Amazon, right? And that's what I did. I copied Amazon in the fact that right now I can tithe to my church, donate to my kids' school, and all the nonprofits I care about all in the same place. My credit card's stored. I can volunteer to all those things in the same place. And so now I just get on my app and go one place. If I want to dive deeper, I'll go to their website. I'm not going to. Like, who goes to their website like more than once? Like the first time, and it's like, I think I saw your website one time. It's like, nobody cares about your website. It's the most overrated thing out there. But that's what I wanted to do, is have that hub. And we're actually redesigning the app version of Donaide. So I'm really excited about that. That'll be probably about 6 months.
Awesome.
I'm not going to say anything more about that, mainly because I am self-funded, so I don't want to throw something out and one of my competitors are like, oh, we can build that and get them before. And some of that funding too is, it's because I didn't take outside funds because I wanted to do what was right for the nonprofit world. I didn't want it to be money driven. And anybody knows when you take a couple $1 million from investors, it's about the money. They may care, but it's still about the money. Like it should. If you can, complete stranger. Here's. So that's what Donaide is. It's some people refer to it as like the Match.com of the nonprofit world. Things like that. But it's a directory style that you can go in there. I mean, even if it's not about a specific charity, you just go to category of, say, animals and look for nonprofits in the animals category. And just see what they got going on.
So if somebody's a nonprofit, they're listening or watching, they say, "Oh my gosh, that's the golden ticket we need." How do they get to be a part of the Donaide network?
They just go to Donaide.com. Hit log in. There's a free version and a paid version. You can do a lot on the free version. I wanted to make it accessible to everybody. You don't need any training. You don't need there's a demo button. Trust me, you don't need the demo button. like I said, we built out so many education assets that nobody uses. But that's a good thing. If they don't need them, that actually we created a better product. And so that's what they can do. And like, even one thing that I know we're going to do it. Let me try to think of, I don't know. I'll come up with something. because anybody's listening, we're going to be doing some programs this summer, and we can give a promo code to your listeners.
Awesome.
The reason why I say come up with something, because I don't have a promo code to give them right now. So I have to come up with something, remember, and tell Courtney to put it in the system.
Yeah.
So even this summer, actually it's just right after summer, September 17th through the 24th, and then some events on the 25th and 26th, we're doing what's called Together in 7.
Okay.
It's just a week-long volunteer and charity support week.
Awesome.
I know there's certain days that happen like that, but to me, it was like, well, what if you're busy that day and you can't participate?
Yeah.
Or some people want to do bigger projects.
Yeah.
So it's really, and it's going to be here in the Hamilton County, Indianapolis area. So we're going to focus on seeing how many nonprofits we can get involved. And that's the one thing that we need nonprofits to understand, is there's a lot of people who want to participate. We've already talked to a lot of people, surveyed a lot of people. But if there's no nonprofits in there putting volunteer opportunities up,
right,
then the people, once again, have nothing to support. And I just urge nonprofits to get creative with their volunteer opportunities. Not everybody wants to paint a house. Not everybody wants to dig a garden.
Yeah.
But people have skill sets that they could really help advance your mission with their skill sets.
Yeah.
It's like, think about yourself. If you saw a volunteer opportunity of, we're really trying to figure out how to create our own podcast. If you saw that and you're like, I can help them with that.
Yeah.
It would take me 2 seconds.
Yeah. Right.
And coach them through it. I mean, it's what you do for a living.
Right. Right.
And so it's things like that I hope nonprofits start to really think about, is how we can utilize very skilled individuals, especially the younger generation. If another nonprofit tells me they don't have anybody to help with social media, I'm going to lose my mind. Like, really? Because there are a lot of 20-year-olds that would destroy your social media in a positive way.
In a positive way, yeah.
And they would love to do it.
Yeah.
They're not stressed about it. I mean, when I post something on social media, I'm like, okay, it takes me like 3 hours. It takes them 30 seconds, But so we have that coming up. And then to celebrate all that, we're doing a luau in downtown Fishers at the amphitheater. It's a free concert. We're actually bringing I'm going to call them an entertainment company from Hawaii.
Okay.
To perform. So you're talking the fire breather people, the
real deal.
The real deal. Yeah. I mean, I did a luau one time, and we did a Jimmy Buffett cover band. Not that kind of luau. This is like a legit luau. So we'll do that to celebrate everything that we did that week. And then on Sunday, if everything works out, we're still in the planning stages. We'll do a Fishers Fire Department versus Police Department softball game.
Okay.
And any money that's raised on that day will actually go towards mental health for that program for those two departments. So those are just some of the things we have coming up.
Yeah. Steve, what's the best way to get connected? Just download the app? I mean...
Yeah, you can go to your app store. It's Donaide. It's Donaide.
Okay.
Or just get online, type in Donaide.com, and you can reach me at Steve Roseman at Donaide.com as well.
Okay.
Just directly. Just
awesome.
Ping me.
Yeah.
Say, hey, heard you on the podcast.
I love it. We'll put that in the show notes as well, so people can just click on the link and get connected. Yeah. Steve, I want to land the plane with this. There's a college senior listening right now.
Yeah.
They want to be in business. Maybe they want to own their own company, and right now, they're super passionate about business and making money, but they don't quite have a heart to make a difference. They don't have the heart that I mean, I'm seeing it from our conversation today. I mean, was lived in your grandparents, you know what I mean? I mean, it starts with Jesus, right? But it comes through generationally for you. What would you say to invite somebody into the kind of journey you've been on there? Like I said, they just graduate, but they don't quite understand the joy that you've discovered with Donaide.
So I think the first thing is, there's two types of people that want to go down that journey, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who believes that this is who they are.
Okay.
Like, that's at the core. I've talked about this many times with my wife, friends and family, that if We Do didn't work out, Donaide didn't work out, it's just going to be another one.
There'll be another one.
Yeah, it's just going to be another one. I've, outside of working for Ben, well, and my parents, but that doesn't really count, but I've never worked for anybody else. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just, I know where my strengths are, and I know when I get up every day, what turns me on, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're that person, people tell us to me all the time, and I'm not even going to act like I've got this one down, but it's the best advice I can give, is try to enjoy the hard times. There's a lot of stories in the middle of what we talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, I was living in a 900 square foot apartment with 10 people. I wanted to cut costs. I didn't want to spend money on rent. I wanted to spend it on my business. There's a lot of those stories.
Yeah.
But they're memories. They're part of the journey. It's part of the fun. When I look back, what was not fun then, I look back like, you know what? It wasn't really that bad. You know, I made some great friends. I mean, when you're packed in there like a sardine, you got to get intimate with people, right?
Yeah.
And so find something that you do love. Obviously, you need to make money.
Yeah.
If you can't make money with it, try to identify that moment as soon as you can. Yeah. Get online. There are a lot of people that can train you to do what you need to do. If you have the capability of finding a mentor or a consultant right away, invest in it. Hands down. It's one thing that I never did. And when I say get online, I have mentors. Like Tony Robbins is my mentor. And people like, really? Yeah, I watch videos every day. It's like, that's our version of mentors these days.
Yep.
And that's okay.
Yep.
Like I'll say it all the time. And these people are geniuses.
Yep.
Why would I not? So that would be my first thing. If you're the other person that like, hey, I think I want to, you should definitely get partners because it's going to get hard.
Yeah.
And you may not have the wherewithal to get through it by yourself.
Yeah.
I wish I had business partners. I'm more of a team guy, but I haven't found people yet that I jive with because it's marriage.
Yeah.
You know, it really is that intense.
Yeah.
Maybe find some business partners, or the one thing that I recommend too is work your job to pay your bills, build your business, to build your future. So at one point, just when those incomes match, then you can make the decision to shift over without any heavy stress.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest thing there.
Yeah.
And technology is changing the game.
Yeah.
So just finding something that you love.
Yeah. Well, I think about it. I remember Bob Taylor from Taylor Guitars. I remember him saying in a seminar one time and he said there are two kinds of people in the world. There's help do and there's have to.
Yeah.
And like you're talking about, like you're a have to person. Like you wake up every day and like you said, if it wasn't Donaide, then it would be something else. It's like you have to do it. And that's a beautiful distinction, I think, of figuring that out of who God's created you to be and then leveraging that. What about the compassionate servanthood side? Because you could just start a company to take care of Steve. So what if there's somebody out there that maybe they're not the beginning, maybe they're in their 40s, they're in their 50s, they have been successful, they've built a company, but there's not a part of it where I've heard this phrase, right, where business has become mission. Well, I mean, they may not be Christians, I guess if they're listening to this podcast, they probably have some kind of faith persuasion, but they've never figured out or discovered the joy of leveraging the business side for great impact. What's an encouragement for them? So
if it doesn't always have to be direct impact, right?
Sure.
So mine directly impact nonprofits.
Yes.
Like it's what it does.
Yeah.
So one thing that you'll see, and there's actually a tax filing for it now. It's called a B Corp. The number one B Corp that everybody knows, Tom Shoes, right?
Yeah.
When you buy a pair, they give a pair.
Yep.
So that would be my recommendation if they want to have some purpose behind it, but they really, because they may love, building tables.
Sure.
Okay, what impact does that really have?
Right.
But you can turn it into impact.
Yeah.
For every table that is sold, 10% goes to a charity.
Yeah.
You can spread that love out. You can choose one or two charities. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah.
Because, think about, there's a lot of businesses out there that do really well that they don't have a purpose behind them.
Yeah.
But you can if you just add that little element.
Yeah.
And our world today anyway is becoming that. This younger generation.
Yeah, they want to make a difference.
Yeah. I talk about this all the time. This is a way overpriced candle. I bought my wife an overpriced candle only because a portion of that went to a charity.
Right.
So it was either the double the price candle to the other one I was going to buy. And I ended up literally spending twice as much because I knew it went there. And I didn't care. It's a joke. But here's the thing. The next time I go to buy her a candle, probably going to get just a different scent of the same brand. So that would be my recommendation is to figure out how to maybe tie that. I'm a big fan of local. I know there's a lot of causes out there that support overseas and stuff like that, and it's great. I love supporting my own community. I grew up on the east side of town where I love my roots on the east side of town. When I moved to the Fishers area and then had kids, it was the first time that I felt the responsibility that if my kids are going to grow up here, I need to be a part of helping make this community a great place to live. Not just living in it and saying, oh, I pay taxes. Like, no, I think it's weird. I don't know why I think of like the Little House on the Prairie sometimes when it comes to community, but like you watch those shows and they are what in my head a community is. It's we help each other. And so that's how I would stage it, is especially if you're a younger individual. Don't go too big too quick when it comes to that. Because then you're like, oh, we're going to feed 1 million people. It's like, well, you start with 100. I mean, you can still have that goal. Just start with a smaller goal first.
And they could figure out nonprofits to sponsor, to get involved with by just going to Donaide.com.
Oh, yeah. Well, and here's the funny thing. You mentioned that. I get this question all the time because I started a nonprofit so early. And people are, oh, how do I start it? Or what do you think? Should I start? And I don't know if I ever would have started a nonprofit if I knew what I know today. Even though I just started another nonprofit. But it just made sense. It flowed. But they were just making an excuse. It is what it is. But the first one, I don't know if I would have done. I did not know that you can go out, put on some big event. It doesn't have to be a gala. Galas are overrated when they're very expensive to put on.
Yes, they are.
So if you're not raising a lot of money, there's a lot of nonprofits that have no business doing it.
We have learned that.
Yeah, I mean, even myself, I'll never put on another gala the way I used to. I'll do social events again. But not the way I did it before. Lost my train of thought there. But
about starting a business, maybe starting a business that's not a nonprofit.
Yeah, so essentially you can go put on an event, find a nonprofit that you want to support, and you can dictate where that money goes. So if you're listening, this doesn't mean start a business and start a nonprofit, attach that business. That's not what I'm saying. Find a nonprofit that you jive with and connect with them. Build a relationship. Don't just hand them money. Build a relationship and you'll be good. It'll be good for both parties.
There's some great ladies here in town that they call themselves Souls to Serve. It's just two ladies, and they got a vision to help nonprofits. They gather all their friends. They put on a huge party, and they've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for local charities. They find one that they vibe with. They research it. They get to know the people. They host the party. They put on basically their own gala just to have a great party for all their friends, and then raise tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars for local charities. But they don't have an organization. They're just doing good in the community.
Absolutely.
And it's a beautiful thing. See, that's what you're doing. It's a joy to have you on the podcast. And we got to dig in to see how we get Blackbird Mission connected with Donaide, because
absolutely
we need some money.
Well, it's funny. The one thing that, and I wish I would have done it, I think the season's over, but I think I'm going to try to do it because everything that I do with my own nonprofit, I want to prove it, document it so that I can basically hand that same strategy over to other people. And so what we're going to plan next year, so hopefully my wife's not listening, because that just means that we just did a garage sale. So that just means it's going to get all stored up again, is a charity garage sale. Easiest freaking thing you do. You reach out to everybody you know, say, hey, on this weekend, this company is donating their parking lot. We're going to have a 2-day garage sale. So people just bring you the stuff that they normally would put in their own garage sale if they do that. And you raise a quick $20,000. And when I say $20,000, people are like, "Are you kidding me?" No, you will. You can easily raise $20,000 if you have that big of an audience to say, "Hey," because what ends up happening, like every neighborhood garage sale, you have a garage sale. You tell your husband, "Hey, can you watch our garage sale so I can go to everybody else's garage sale And, you end up shopping your own stuff. But, that's one thing. I think it'd be an easy fundraiser. Nobody's really doing it. I remember planning it with my first nonprofit. We never had time to execute it. But people are getting too sophisticated. If you take a step back and just make it simple.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just about an appeal, asking.
Yeah.
So
what I love, Steve, is you're an example of somebody who has a passion that teams up, that the passion is in sync with the heart of God. You're, in my opinion, you're an apostolic pioneer, entrepreneur. And the beautiful thing is when we start to open up our imagination to God, who's the giver of all ideas, right? It's like he's found in you someone that he can trust with great ideas. Yeah. And you're going to just keep getting them. And I can't wait to see you just continue to create them, man.
I appreciate it. No, it's been a lot of fun.
Good stuff.
Journey.
Thanks, Steve.
Hey, thank you.
And we're back. Steve Roseman from Donaide. Are you kidding me? Crowd goes wild. Great job, Steve. I was on Steve's podcast a couple weeks ago. You go check that out. Go to the Donaide podcast, and you can hear my interview with Steve. And what I love about the conversation with Steve is I feel like it's another average, everyday Joe. He's not writing books. He's not a pastor where it's like, oh, I can't be like that guy. No, he's just a business guy, right? Who has given his heart and passion to God and said, hey, God, what are we going to do? I want to start businesses. I did that, some success, some failures. I realized that, maybe money isn't the actual goal of life. And once we divorce ourselves, guys, from money and prestige, power being the thing that motivates our life, things get really, really, really open. God has a lot of room to create the future with us because we're not dominated and controlled by making money. Is there anything wrong with making money? Absolutely not. I love John Wesley said, right? Make all you can, save all you can, give all you can. No problem, right? Money within itself, not a problem. Greed, there we go. There's our sinful root. It's greed. Once we say, hey, God, could you just go ahead and weed out greed from my heart and replace it with generosity? Now all of a sudden I become a conduit for God to pour more resource and money into my life because now I'm a channel that it flows through to others, right? It's an Old Testament principle, right? I'm blessed to be a blessing. And that's a lot of what Steve's life is, that he's realized that he's been blessed with the ability to start and maintain companies. He's a pioneer apostle. That's who God's created him to be. He's known that since he was a little kid. And some of you are listening, you go, you know what? I've had that since I was a little kid. I have wanted to do something like that. And I actually have done it and I've started some things. But you know what, Daron? If I'm honest, I'm just overwhelmed by all the problems in my company that I've started. And I basically only exist to solve my own problems. Here's what I'm going to invite you into. I want to ask you what you think about this. If you were to take the risk and say, God, give me a passion for you and the problems that you want to solve. And then I give you permission, giving then permission to God, I give you permission to begin to develop new passions and connections with my heart and yours. And then if you were to step into partnership with God, right? The God who's for you, not against you, who's near you, not far from you, who's created you on purpose and for a purpose. Is it possible that if you were to give permission, right, or have passion for, permission to, and partnership with God, is it possible that then God would begin to give you provision to solve the problems in your life? Another scenario is you just keep trying to fix everything on your own with no passion from God, with no permission to God, and no partnership with God. All of your own ideas, all of your own scenarios, all of your own inability to be providential over these problems. What I would like to ask you to consider as you listen to the podcast is coming to the place where you begin to give God permission to give you a passion for partnership with him. Because I think if you begin to ask God, because the Word of God tells us that we can have the mind of Christ. In spiritual DNA, I teach you that you are actually able to participate in the divine nature, right? We've been given everything we need for life and godliness through our knowledge of Jesus. And through this, right, this is 2 Peter chapter 1, he gives us, we're able to participate in the divine nature. So God's very spirit is can be in you. You can have the mind of Christ. You can have the heart of God, the very divine nature of God through you. And do you think maybe in that kind of partnership that God could lead you to actually solve the problems in your life quicker and more efficiently and more effectively as you're on the road of partnership to help solve the problems of the world? I think that's a good bet. I think the over-under on that one is pretty good. That when you bet on, I'm going to partner up with God, I'm going to give him permission to begin to change my heart to solve problems in this world, that you'll find yourself living a pretty passionate life. Steve Roseman, thank you so much, brother, for the inspiration. And here's the challenge for you today, is where are you at with that? Where's the prayer? Once again, another P word, right? Today's episode brought to you by the letter P. For you, are you on the passion for God piece? Is that where you're stuck? You know what, Darren, bottom line, I don't have a passion for the things of God or God himself. That might be where you start. Hey, God, could you start to give me a passion for you, a desire to get connected deeper with you? That's a great place to start. Maybe that's where you're at. Maybe for you, it's say, you know what, it's the permission part, Darren. I'm a little bit not really trusting, afraid he might screw up my life. Listen, I've been there. I can tell you this, the greatest thing you can ever do is give God permission to screw up your life and jump into the passions and the dreams he has created you for. Or are you at a place where it's the partnership with? You started to move and you're right on the verge. You're right on the edge of jumping in. Be honest with yourself. Be compassionate with yourself. Get curious about where you may be and then move forward into what God's calling you into. Because that's the life that you were created to live. A life with him, a life for him, a life of passion, permission, and partnership. So good, Steve Roseman. Thank you for taking us there. I can't wait to see what God does in your life and what problems in this world you start solving as you partner up with him. Hey, have a great week. I would love to hear from you. I haven't gotten enough emails recently. I feel lonely. I need you to reach out to me. You can send me an email at darren@blackbirdmission.com. You can also text me, 317-550-5070. If you haven't followed me on Instagram, post a lot of highlights from the podcast and just other stuff in life. I'd love to stay connected with you there. And shout out to Cheryl, listener Cheryl. She's always good to send me such good encouragement emails about the podcast. Makes my heart happy. So, love to hear from you. But until we do, remember these three things. God's for you, not against you. God's near you, not far away. And God has created you on purpose and for a purpose. Thanks for listening. Big shout out to all the new listeners from NTS Camp. Love you, dudes. Glad you're following along and stepping into who God's created you to be, even as high school and junior high students. Big shout out to the NTS family. Appreciate it, guys. We'll see you next week. Talk to you right here on the Daron Earlewine Podcast.